thank you so much for joining us today. As we begin, can you say a few words about your current role and what you've been up to?
Yeah, thanks, Misha. First of all, thank you very much for having me on the podcast today. I appreciate it. I'm Tom Richards, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer at NINJIO. We do cybersecurity awareness training. So, for your listeners who aren't completely sure what that is, we create training for end users, so normal people like you or me who aren't technical people, on how to implement safer practices online, as well as a simulated phishing platform for security practitioners to ensure that that folks on the tail end of that, the end users, are actually learning and improving their security online.
Interesting. And as Chief Marketing Officer, what kind of functions report to you?
Well, I run all of the marketing functions, so everything from demand gen, content development. We do a ton of reporting and tracking, of course, and recently branching into really sort of building out, along with my partner in sales, all of our outbound tools, and driving a lot of business through that channel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting because sometimes we talk to people and they say, "Oh, the SDR team reports to a marketing function." There is no kind of one true way, and a lot of people find it a little bit novel because usually it reports to sales function. And I wonder, are you kind of splitting the responsibility? Which way?
Well, it's great, and we've had this conversation internally as well. We've had other teams that reported to sales and then reported to marketing, and we've done a reset on that. And the way we're approaching it now is with the marketing team building out a lot of the toolkit, a lot of tool sets around what's needed, because we're basically hitting a reset on our outbound program. We're in charge of the tool sets. We're going to build a lot of the foundational cadences and all of that. And then the operations of that and the responsibility for actual outcomes on that will move to our sales group with our head of sales, because he'll push that through SDRs and AEs, who will be responsible for delivering the outcomes from that. So again, like how marketing and sales often works in a SaaS organization, the way I like to think about it, marketing's teeing it up for sales to hit it long and hit it straight, right? We're doing the same sort of thing here.
Makes sense. So essentially, marketing will be telling the story through an email cadence, but then the SDR will actually be booking calls and meetings for demos and discovery conversations. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we find it a great place where sales and marketing find collaboration, where we have some combined KPIs on where we want to get to drive business for the organization.
Excellent. Yeah, I understand. How did you get in cybersecurity? What was I noticed, I think you had some agency work in your past. What was the first cybersecurity door that you knocked on?
Yeah, I did. I started in consumer marketing, working with a lot of big brands that you've heard of on the agency side: Apple, Starbucks, Expedia. These massive, fantastic brands. And I started. I had a lot of success there, where I was able to start my own small agency, and one of my clients was NINJIO. So started very small with hey, let's just test and see how it goes, see how it works with the founder, and success begat more success, to the point where the founder actually sold the company. And as part of that, the private equity group that came in, their key goal was really all around go-to-market, right? They find something that works really well, add a lot of money for go-to-market, build it up a lot. And the founder asked me if I would kind of end what I was doing and come full-time here with NINJIO. And, I couldn't say yes fast enough. When you find a product that works really well as a marketer, half your job is done for you. It's really hard to market something that's not great. But the flip side of that, when something is great, it's a real tailwind in the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, if you wanna hitch a ride on a rocket that's going far, not the one that's being built. I mean, it's a different risk profile. Obviously, you're taking different chances, but But to your point, if something is already proven, and especially if you spend time working on it, you kind of you're on the inside already. You don't need
Exactly.
any due diligence, any further due diligence.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
And it's interesting because I think cybersecurity in general is kind of such a growing space. It's probably a testament of a much bigger role that technology is playing in all our lives, and personal level, and company level, and government level, and just how much more dependent we're on that. And I think as a result, a lot more people are looking at cybersecurity marketing as a career, whether switching from B2C to B2B, or from technology marketing to cybersecurity, or from agency work to go in-house. What would be your advice for someone who's maybe earlier in their journey and just kind of looking into space? There's so many things, so many distractions, so many shiny penny, and so many things you wish you knew. What would be your advice from your vantage points to someone who's just starting on this path?
Well, I think my advice to somebody who wants to get into cybersecurity marketing specifically would be very similar to any vertical that somebody's interested in. And the first thing I would ask myself is, why do I want to get into that vertical? Do I have a passion for that for some reason? Or at least an aptitude, right? You don't have to do what you love. You should do what you're good at. And if you have an aptitude for B2B work, I think that cybersecurity is a great place to go, because it is a growing, I don't think it's going to stop growing anytime soon. But in that, for early career people, I always suggest, if you can find the best people to work for, so your VP, your director, your CMO, whoever it is, that is a good person and is interested in helping you grow your career and helping you actually learn, and whether you're going to grow in that company or not, but somebody who can be a mentor, or at least somebody who's interested in your personal growth. And this has been my path to success. I've worked for so many great people who are just really, really intelligent, really would take a moment, explain what was going on. It may have been after hours or before hours, right? That the day's very busy. And because I was able to show that I was actually interested in hearing what they had to say, and I was interested in the work and growing myself, they took an interest in me being better, and it becomes this virtuous loop. And so, we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. That has been my experience. And if you can find great people as an early career person who want to invest in your success and are willing to go as far as you're willing to go on that, you can't lose. You really can't. And then if you're in a company that is find great person, bad company, that person's probably going to leave soon, and perhaps you can follow them. Or great person, find a better company, continue to connect with that person and keep them in your circle of folks that you refer back to. It's not a huge world. And really, the people who helped us early on are people we can help later in our career, and so on and so forth.
Certainly. And would you recommend finding a person like this at a larger organization where you can get exposed to bigger scope projects? So maybe join a rotation program where you go through different kind of stations, if you wish, or join a startup, whether it's different rounds, obviously different stages, where you will be forced to wear many hats, but where the work itself will change. Like, first quick question. The second is, how important is being technical? Is it important to be technical to be successful in cybersecurity marketing, given that the field itself is fairly technical?
Well, I'll take your first question first. There are benefits to both small and large. I had the benefit of working large, which gave me access to high quality people that I worked for, because they tend to, attract incredibly high quality people. And I was lucky enough that those people were able to give me some time. It meant that I learned early in my career the right way to do many things. The trade-off with a startup is you might be cutting a lot of corners. You might well, I shouldn't say cutting corners, but you may be doing things in a more bootstrapped way. And as an early career person, you may not be able to recognize the difference between a bootstrap methodology of doing something versus a really more thought through strategic methodology on that. Now, again, if you're working for somebody great, they can explain to you, here's the thinking behind it. Here's how we're going to do it to make it happen quickly and efficiently. And again, it's about the person. So I don't know that there is a single better approach, though my tendency is large if you can find great people with great process, because if you know process, you can change process as you get into the driver's seat. But if you don't know the right way to do it, it's very hard to get there on your own. And I think your second question was around technical ability. And I think in any vertical, if you're working in B2B, you have to understand the basics of how your product works, how your buyers think about it, and it's going to be technical. Now, I am certainly nowhere near as technical as our Chief Information Security Officer here, or our IT group. Like they blow my mind, but I have to learn enough to be able to hold my own. If I'm talking to a CISO, if I'm just even doing research, I'm talking to our advisory panel or board member who comes from a technical background, I have to be able to know enough to understand what they're saying, be able to ask the smart questions. Now, the other technical side of that is the technical side of marketing. So yeah, technical of cybersecurity, you got to know the technical side of marketing, as we know, as platforms and opportunities become much more technical, data-driven, and the ability to connect very useful tools and understand where something is weak and where something is strong. And being able to really identify your MarTech stack, you have to be somewhat technical there. Now, you can bring in folks who literally know how to connect that if you don't. If you're a little bit older, I didn't come up in that world, but as a young person coming up in this, I would highly recommend that you learn some basic tools and some basic coding on how to really build all that, because there's really nothing better than being able to do it yourself. Is how you know if somebody is good at what they do or maybe a little bit more boastful than their skills represent.
Interesting. And for more, just to double click on what you mentioned about MarTech, you probably saw those. It's like a map of the MarTech vendor landscape, and I think when it started, it was maybe 50 companies and 5 buckets, and now it's sprawled to thousands of companies and dozens and dozens of different buckets. I think there was kind of overlap, I'm sure, but I think a lot of it is driven by the need for attribution, for data, for analytical approach. But I wonder, because on the one hand you have this, but on the other hand, I'm sure you must have probably heard this term, dark funnels, where you can kind of apply attribution to the last mile, if you wish, right? So if person is coming to your website and filling out a form asking for a demo, well, you see that they typed the company name in Google search, so therefore we must probably increase our advertising with Google. However, and that's kind of capturing intent at that stage, and a lot of companies are focusing on that because it's really identifying someone as an active need. They probably have a budget. They reviewed the landscape. They identified 3 vendors for their shortlist, and they just need to they're at final stages, and the sales cycle will be short. However, what often people realize is that for this person to self-identify and raise their hand, probably they passed by your booth at RSA a year ago, and then they went to grab coffee with a colleague, and then they were in the Slack channel, and someone was asking a question about that company, none of which is, there was no attribution for any of that. Often vendors are not even privy to those conversations, and yet they inform and drive decision-making and intent down the line. How do you think about kind of balancing the two? On the one hand, investing in tech stack and tools to capture this intent down the line. I'm sure there's so many vendors out there Sixth Sense, Bombora, G2 Crowd, ZoomInfo, just kind of top of mind. How do you balance that with demand gen side, with addressing the needs of someone who's earlier in the customer journey? They're super busy, they need to be educated, but they are a little bit further from the gravity is not as strong. How do you balance kind of those two trains of thought, investing in analytics and tools, but also balancing with the fact that not all of it is subject to attribution?
Well,
I apologize in advance.
Oh, no. That's really where my personal experience in working in B2C in a lot of very brand driven work. So, I started my career, getting people to feel good about brands, right? And I think the world has changed from there. That was 20 years ago. Now brands really need to prove it, right? You can explain it, but the proof's in the pudding. You go from I'm interested to I understand this very quickly as a buyer, whether you're on Amazon or you're a B2B buyer, right? It doesn't really matter. That is completely compressed. So what I do is I try to make sure that NINJIO is spoken well of when we are not in the room, right? Is a way I think about it. So the ways we do that are a couple of things. One, I work very closely with my CS and my operation team to make sure that our product delivers what we promise. It's the number one thing to being able to really stand behind something that's a long-term play. Now, if you're short-term play and you're just trying to pump something up, all right, that's a totally different game, but that's not where we play. Two, I put a lot of effort into folks who have an outsized voice within our buying group. So our ICB is chief information security officers, and maybe people a little below them on bigger companies, maybe a little above them in higher and smaller companies, but we roughly know where that is. And so we know that they're talking to each other, right? And it's tough to manage that. And we really do that through the first point of making sure we have a product that works well. We know they're talking to category analysts. So we make an effort to speak to our friends at Gartner, our friends at Forrester, our friends at Software Reviews, our friends, across all of these, where it's not just a review site, and I'll get to those, but where they're actually talking to a person and they say, hey, here's my problem. Here's what I'm trying to solve. Here's my opportunity. What do you think? So I put a lot of effort into making sure that they understand what we do. Now, they may recommend us, they may not, depending on what it is. But that's the brand advertising in an old way of thinking about it, and then making sure that our customers who like us, which is 99.9% of our customers, have a lot of opportunity to share that publicly. So we incentivize them to share their opinion on the G2 and the Gartner peer reviews and Source4, all of these review sites. And sometimes all it takes, if a customer actually likes the solution, is you just have to ask them. So we build programs internally with our customer success team to, hey, please just remember to ask. It's one of the things we do internally is don't be too humble, right? Be humble in the sense of don't be a jerk. But if you tend towards humility, push yourself a little bit more towards just asking for the review. Now, the other side of that, obviously, lots of tools for intent and demand gen and search, and I think that's where a lot of B2B marketers spend most of their time. But I've seen a lot of success with outside success there when we've done this other work around, making sure the conversation about us is had and is positive when we're not in the room. As I say, that's kind of the way I think about it.
It makes sense because it's interesting that you lean on your existing happy clients to kind of create this content, because it's, from the CISO perspective, it's very credible because they're hearing it from a peer, not from a vendor. So it's already the barriers are down, but also it's interesting that you mentioned that you put a lot of intent in it to drive that, because often people find that I saw a stat somewhere that people tend to be 10 times more vocal when they're unhappy.
Yeah.
If things are good, they usually don't say anything. It's only things when things go
Right.
sideways.
You expect the refrigerator to work. I bought it. You plug it in, you keep things cold, right? Like
Exactly. Like
why
would you? Things
yeah.
are good, as expected. So it takes a little bit extra, to your point, to ask, and just to create a structure and make it easy for them to contribute that content to price. That makes a lot of sense.
We do, but we also try to exceed expectations, right? So yes, the refrigerator keeps things cold. You didn't expect it to tell you what's on your shopping list, right? That might be a surprise and delight thing. We try to do that through our post purchase and the engagement process as people are working with us. With a strong customer success team that is not just making sure you're using it or replying to your questions, that sort of thing, but being proactive about, hey, here are some of the things that we're seeing that people in a situation similar to yours are seeing outsized growth and success with our solution, or could be solutions that aren't ours that are tangential. And bringing that sort of value to our customers are things that I think they don't necessarily expect from us, but are really very happy about. So it's kind of like extra credit when you were in school. You did a little bit of work and you got a lot of benefit out of that, really, versus, you got the 10 questions right on the test. The 11th one was worth more than 10%. So, sometimes it just takes a little bit more effort to get an outsized benefit. And, we have a lot of empathy towards our customers, and we truly believe in their success. Their success is our success. We're highly aligned. This is across the organization.
Certainly. Switching gears a little bit. So I think of marketing as a toolbox, and there's so many different tools. And I know some organizations, it's implied in that most of them are used to an extent, but some of them are used more often, or you're leaning more on them. I know some organizations, they are 95% channel, and that's where they put their efforts in. Others say, well, we really want to be able to tell our story face to face, and they'll lean into, the black hats RSAs and the guard identity and security event and others. At some point during COVID, it was all about virtual roundtables and webinars and whatnot. You mentioned that you are revamping your outbound effort. What are the tools that produce the most results for you right now? Which ones are you using most frequently?
Yeah, great question. We were really based and found early success on direct sales. So because we have a product that is pretty different from our category, it wasn't terribly difficult to get hand raisers. We show it, people say, oh, hey, whoa, that's interesting, that's different. I don't know if it's for me, but I know I want to know more about it. So early on, before I was in this role with NINJIO, we were able to get hand raisers, and we're able to put those straight to direct sales folks who sit outside my door, not far from here and across the country. And we built a very strong program there. Now, what we've seen, and that's great, but it doesn't scale as far as you mentioned channel. So we have put a dedicated effort over the last 2 years, really as long as I've been here, sort of in role, to building our channel relationships and being able to empower our partners to be as dynamic around our product as we are, and really understand what it is, build a program that incentivizes them to want to sell us. I think it's good for them. It's good for their business for two reasons. One, they make good money, and two, their customers are very happy with it, right? They're not interested in selling something that's going to churn in a year and have an unhappy customer. So we've put a lot of marketing effort on that side to explain both sides of that world. And then the third thing, when the world was shut down and we could only do virtual, it was tough on us, and the same as it was for everybody. The virtual events, they were just, I think, challenging. And what we learned in there is, if you don't have something really specific and really interesting to say, you don't really have a play there. And we learned that after a couple of events and decided, okay, we need to pivot to having something really, really compelling. Now that the world's opened up and we're able to physically go places like RSA, like Black Hat, we found it to be really, really, very good this year. A lot of excitement from that. I think you've got pent up demand of people wanting to go places to talk to people in person. You've got pent up demand of people looking for something new and interesting, right? Which is where we kind of sit in our market.
Mhm.
And I'm able to get my sales folks in front of individuals who are eager to have the conversation and are really open-minded about new solutions.
Mhm.
Because during that time in COVID, it was kind of a hunker down, go with what you know, budgets were tough. We didn't know where the world was going to go, us as sellers, but us as buyers were the same way. So we've seen this unfolding. So we have, it's been a great 2023. We hope 2024 is going to be fantastic as well. I feel like this recession has been a month away for about 18 months now, right? To quote Professor Scott Galloway. And, it keeps getting pushed out and pushed out. So, we're hoping, we're planning on 2024 being quite good, as unfortunately the need for what we do continues to grow.
For sure. This is very interesting, and I certainly hope to continue this conversation in another venue as well. Tom, I know we're coming up on time, just to be respectful. What's the best way for people to find you? What's the best way to connect?
With me, my LinkedIn, if you just Google Tom Richards, CMO NINJIO, you'll find me. I think that's the best place to connect with me. And I appreciate everybody who does do that. I get a lot of folks who connect with me there. And if somebody's interested in connecting more with NINJIO, our website has plenty of opportunities, as you can imagine, to speak to somebody. So thank you.
Tom, thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, it was great. I appreciate the conversation, Misha. Have a great afternoon.